morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where things are a little slow today, but because of that, some other studios have been able to make some headlines about their movies, in addition to all the big comic book movie headlines that we had in a flurry of activity around Deadpool. By the way, on the side, I just want to mention something. There's this, I believe, fake tweet going around saying that Drew McSweeney at HitFix said the story that he did about the DC movies because he wanted to get vengeance for them releasing this amazing trailer for Batman v Superman on the eve of Deadpool's release. And that was interpreted as Warner Brothers trying to steal Deadpool's thunder. I would just like to point out that the way Hollywood works is that when a really big movie comes out that people are excited about and that studios anticipate a number of people will be going to, they put trailers in front of that movie for what they feel is similar fare. It's riding the coattails kind of effect. It's been happening for years, decades even. So this isn't. I don't understand how anybody would interpret it that way, because this is just business as usual. I can assure you that when Batman v Superman comes out, there will be some amazing trailers playing in front of that. When Zootopia comes out in just a few weeks, you'll probably see a Finding Dory and a Moana trailer in front of it, and that's from the same studio. So I just wanted, we're going to talk a little bit about. Today actually is a very business-focused episode about release strategy and franchise strategy. So that just popped into my head as something that was kind of gnawing at me because it was ridiculous. All right, so let's get on to the actual stories of the day. So a big headline yesterday was that they have announced the release date for Blade Runner 2. And it threw everybody for a loop because it's a ridiculous release date, okay? It's January 12th, 2018, which is that year's Martin Luther King weekend. Now, that is a holiday weekend, but in the past, the biggest sort of movie to take that weekend has been the ride-along films with Kevin Hart and Ice Cube. And they opened, the first one opened in the 40 million range, and the second one a little bit below that. I think somewhere in the high 30s, as I recall. But anyway, not a huge movie weekend. So everybody was like, why would you put Blade Runner 2 in a weekend that has consistently not been a major weekend? And I think there's a couple of potential reasons why. All right, so the first one that I've seen other people say is that, well, maybe this is just a wide release date, like The Revenant, kind of, right? And it's going to have a pre-release for awards season, right? Like it's going to have a limited release in late December, and then it'll expand in January, all of The Hateful Eight and The Revenant. And The Revenant has made a lot of money, but I think that's largely due to Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the few box office draws left, consistent box office draws. Even he's not Teflon, but 99% of the time he delivers the box office. But anyway, I don't know if that's true, because I feel like the people associated with Blade Runner just are not awards friendly. Look at Mad Max Fury Road, which, is finally a awards contender, but I think it lost so much fan support that that's really going to be what undoes it ultimately from actually winning anything, which is really sad. Everybody loved Mad Max Fury Road, then everybody threw their allegiance to Star Wars and was like, what the hell's Mad Max? That sucks. And now everybody's into Deadpool, and now nobody's even talking about Star Wars anymore. It's crazy. You can love more than one movie at a time. So anyway, and it's important. I think it's been proven the power that we have as fans, and we need to use that power. With great power comes great responsibility, and I don't think we're being very responsible right now. We had a responsibility to bring Mad Max Fury Road across the finish line, or at least do the most we could to make that happen, and I don't believe that we did. But anyway, we'll see what happens, in about just a week, but it's very frustrating. So anyway, Denis Villeneuve, who's directing, he's tried to be an Oscar contender, but it just does not work out for him. The awards voters are not fans of his work. Maybe with the new voting rules that'll change, but I wouldn't count on anything that Denis Villeneuve does to get any awards consideration, right? Then you have Harrison Ford, who of course is coming off of Star Wars Episode 7, a huge part of that, a big part of what sold it, and he's leaving the franchise. It's been confirmed. He's not on the cast list for Episode 8. So he's going to focus on Blade Runner. So he can still make blockbusters. For everyone who used his advanced age as an excuse for taking him out of Star Wars, he just doesn't want to make Star Wars movies anymore. But then also Ryan Gosling will be joining him. Now that is a fanboy and fangirl dream cast. It's, however, not only is it not only a not awards friendly cast, but it's not a box office friendly cast either. To quote Inside Llewyn Davis, I don't see a lot of money here. That was the best line in that movie. Because it's true. No matter how great something might be, or how artistic it might be, or how fan friendly it might be, sometimes it just doesn't seem like it has a lot of money on the table. Now, this could be a pleasant surprise a la Deadpool, but Blade Runner just doesn't have the fan base that Deadpool does. And not only that, but it's not currently active. So I don't really, I think that this is something that is a weird bet. So I don't think it's a strong box office contender, and I don't think it's a strong awards contender. Now, are they handicapping this release date in both categories? Yes. If you release it during awards season, or if you release it in the middle of the summer or in the holiday season, then you can kind of like put out the vibe that it's a big performer or a big awards contender with that release date. But this release date is like the studio admitting that that's true. So that's weird. Now, there is a silver lining here, and there is something that could potentially be very positive about this, right? So what could be happening is that after the success of building out the Valentine's Day, President's Day weekend into a major release date, it's become one of the major release dates of the year. But it's really, 50 Shades has it booked for the next 2, so we'll see. I think there's going to be a war brewing over that release date. But maybe the studios are like, well, if we could do it with that holiday weekend, why can't we maybe build out Martin Luther King weekend? We've already done a nice job with Ride Along, getting it started. Let's put Blade Runner 2 in there. The release schedules are getting more and more crowded, so I think we should applaud the creativity of the studios to try and, break new ground, go exploring and, settle new territory. So I think that would be really cool. I mean, if we could get more really big release dates, that would be wonderful. And maybe Blade Runner, just maybe, Blade Runner has evolved into something that is strong enough to establish a release date, right? Like, you can release Star Wars whenever you want. People are going to go. And, I think the same could be said to some degree for Deadpool, although I think they've tied in the Valentine's Day thing very nicely there. But, also with the, we'll see how Batman v Superman does at the end of March. But, they're going to have to find new ground because Hollywood's so prolific these days. But, Martin Luther King is, like, really risky. So I guess the studio's like, we're going to either, go out in a, blaze of glory, or we're going to, like, really succeed. And I think that's interesting they would risk Blade Runner 2 in such a fashion. But I'm curious, what do you think? Does it matter to you when Blade Runner 2 comes out? Do you think that the release date does affect how you feel about a movie? Like, telegraphing if it's going to be a hit, whatever, or if it's an awards contender? And then also, do you have any faith in this film, just on its own, with Denis Villeneuve directing? I love Denis Villeneuve. He is an incredibly talented filmmaker. Prisoners, for instance, was his. And then I think Harrison Ford, I'm excited to see him return in that role. And then also Ryan Gosling. I really like Ryan Gosling quite a bit. He's made some career mistakes in front of him behind the camera. So hopefully, this is going to, he's going to have a great comeback. The Nice Guys looks fantastic. But we'll see how that performs at the box office. But anyway, that's the first story of the day. And it's a very interesting situation. All right, so in comparison, let's move over to a movie. And also the first Blade Runner, by the way, never was a huge box office hit. But, over the years, it's, gained quite a following. It's like movie royalty, right? I mean, even if someone hasn't seen Blade Runner, chances are they know what it is. All right, so anyway, San Andreas is a huge hit. It made $473 million worldwide. And I think it deserved every penny. I thought that was a very, very solid film. I really enjoyed it. Not only did Dwayne Johnson do a great job and did it have great visual effects, but I thought it was a really well-written movie, which we're going to get to that in a moment. Remember, I said that because it's important for the sequel. But also, the first thing I want to touch on is that it gave Dwayne Johnson a career. I mean, he was doing pretty well beforehand. He's franchised steroids, right? Like, he was fix up G.I. Joe and he would fix up Fast and Furious. But now this is like his career, right? I mean, this is his franchise and he's the lead and he's not helping anybody else. So this is what got him, all the deals that he has coming up, they're all off of the strength of San Andreas. And, he really worked hard for that movie to succeed. So kudos to him. But, it has yet to be proven that Dwayne Johnson knows what he's doing as a producer. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of the movies he has coming up, he's producing. Baywatch, he's producing. Big Trouble in Little China, I believe. I don't know if that went forward, but Rampage. He's doing Rampage. The video game is a movie. He's producing that as well. So we'll see if he's able to deliver. But San Andreas was a special movie that did very well, deservedly so. Now, the director is coming back and the producers are coming back and Dwayne Johnson is coming back, but sadly, the writers aren't coming back. Why aren't they coming back? Well, they're working on Rampage. So they've hired a new team of writers for San Andreas, which makes me very nervous because, again, I think the true strength of that movie was how solid the script was. It was very clever. It held together. They did a nice job with all the different characters. It was a really good portrayal of a family. It was just very good. It was a great instance of commercial writing. I really was impressed with it. And it's Carlton Cuse, by the way, who comes from Lost. I guess he was the one who balanced out Damon Lindelof. So anyway, there's a little bit of information about what the sequel is going to be about. It's going to focus on the Ring of Fire, which is all the very earthquake-heavy sections around the Pacific Ocean, where 90% of the world's earthquakes occur. But this is very clever because it's going to give the movie locales in both South America and South Asia, like the Philippines and Indonesia. And I think not only does that fit very well with Dwayne Johnson as a persona, but I think that that's very good box office wise. I think it'll make the film a very strong, even stronger player globally, and I think it'll bring in some nice diversity into the film as well, and also I think touch on Dwayne Johnson's mixed, diverse background. So I think it's really good. I think so far so good, but it makes me very nervous that they would get rid of the writers. Now, the third story of the day is that Transformers, they have their whole Transformers, team of writers. They're really trying to make Transformers a legitimate franchise, and this is their plan. So a little bit more information is being released. So they've locked down some release dates. They've decided that June is going to be Transformers month. So in 2017, you're going to get Transformers 5 with Michael Bay and Mark Wahlberg returning yet again, even though Michael Bay swore he would not. It's always his last Transformers movie. But then they're going to do another Transformers movies in 2019, but in between they're doing a spin-off movie. They're taking basically the Star Wars model of core storyline spin-off, and that's what they're going to do with Transformers. And the first spin-off will be Bumblebee. Now, it's very interesting. They're going to try and see if they can do a smaller story and a cheaper film, because they don't want to spend the same kind of money, obviously. They want to have a little bit of, and I think Deadpool proved you don't always have to spend the money. But Deadpool's a very unique property. I think that for Bumblebee, I don't know if based on what the Transformers films have done so far and how far they've come, if audiences are interested in a smaller and cheaper Transformers movie. I just don't know if it's possible. You would have to get some really strong talent, story-wise, working on that movie, both as writers and also as whoever the director is. Michael Bay is a shock and awe director. It works very well for him. He has a lot of movies in the $1 Billion Club, and I think that even the most diehard Michael Bay critic would not be able to say they didn't enjoy one Michael Bay movie. I mean, he has a good resume. But I think he's evolved into something very interesting. But I think that he can't do a really good solid story. But, it's hard to find someone who can do a solid story. That's one of the reasons that Hollywood has so many problems these days. So I'd be curious to see if they could do a Bumblebee movie a la like E.T. maybe, or Short Circuit. I think that would be the route that you would try and go. But Bumblebee can't speak. I guess E.T. didn't really speak very much, but Bumblebee is a giant car who can't speak. So getting him to emote, I think, is going to be really difficult. Now, to be fair, though, Bumblebee has a ton of fans. So, maybe that would help the movie to do well. But I'm curious, does anybody want a smaller, cheaper Bumblebee movie? Is that something you'd be interested in seeing? Are you like, yes, this is what I wanted from Transformers. Thank you, Transformers Brain Trust. Or are you like, that sounds horrible. You got rid of the only thing Transformers has going for it, and that's shock and awe. All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now, on to the viewer question. This comes from Stephen Askey. How appropriate. Stephen Askey is going to ask a question. So Stephen says, question, please answer, multiple exclamation marks. In comparison to Deadpool, do you think that Fox and Bryan Singer have dropped the ball for the ad campaign for X-Men Apocalypse? In the lead up to X-Men Days of Future Past, I was eager to see it, but I truly don't have the same level of excitement as I do for, say, Suicide Squad and Captain America Civil War, which is a shame since it's Apocalypse and one of the greatest X-Men foes of all time. Yes, I do think X-Men Apocalypse is in trouble. I think their ad campaign has been lacking, not only in its scope and depth, but also just what they've presented, period. I think Apocalypse didn't turn out so great stylistically. I think that's been a problem. But all the other movies you mentioned, and even X-Men Days of Future Past, there was a very simple idea to promote, right? X-Men Days of Future Past, Wolverine goes back in time, right? To stop an assassination. Very easy to understand. And also it was based on a very famous X-Men comic book story. Suicide Squad, villains, it's acting as heroes against their will. And it's got Joker and Harley Quinn. Very easy to understand. Captain America Civil War. You've got Captain America versus Iron Man. And again, based on a very famous comic book. And also even Batman v Superman. Very easy. At least it's an easy concept. But I would say that where Batman v Superman has hit some trouble itself in the ad campaign is the same place that X-Men Apocalypse has. And that's that the movie seems too crowded, too busy, and they lose the simplicity of the message, right? That's what happened when they added the Doomsday reveal. They muddled the message. And I think with X-Men Apocalypse, they've muddled the message in that there's just like, when you watch the trailer, I think you're hard-pressed to be like, well, what is the story besides the fact that Apocalypse shows up and he has these horsemen working for him, right? I think there isn't what's the elevator pitch? You're like, what's X-Men Apocalypse about? And it's the next X-Men movie isn't a good answer, okay? So I think that's where X-Men Apocalypse suffers. Also, I think the lack of mystique has been a problem. And also, let's be fair, X-Men movies that don't feature Hugh Jackman have not done well. It's like a very nice ode to Hugh Jackman's strength as not as the character and to the franchise. And he really, I think that Fox is probably, I'm sure, very worried about him deciding to retire as Wolverine and looking for a new Wolverine. Tom Hardy, he should be James Bond or Wolverine, but one of the two. Can he be both? But Hugh Jackman could have been both, but turned the Bond role down, which he says he now regrets. But anyway, or he's like, now I'm ready for it, and it's like, too late. But anyway, I think that's the issue, and that's, I think, the reason I picked Steven's question is because I wanted to see how you guys felt about X-Men Apocalypse, ask everybody what your thoughts on it are. Just yesterday I said, it comes out the same weekend as Alice Through the Looking Glass, so I'm curious, what's your number one pick for that weekend? What movie you're going to see first. It's Memorial Day week. I believe it's Memorial Day weekend, so I think obviously you'll probably see both movies, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I think which one will you buy tickets for first, right? Like what movie do you have to see that weekend? But I just think that was also, I wanted to share that theory about advertising and that you need a really clear pitch. Like, what is this movie? And I think with Deadpool, it was very clear. This is a, comedy superhero movie, right? And it's going to have cool action sequences and be funny. And that was a very simple pitch. And I think that that's what they need to do. And so X-Men Apocalypse, I think they should have focused more on Apocalypse, perhaps. Also, maybe the story has problems overall. I think they also have too many X-Men in it. There's too many X-Men, and they're of different age groups. So you're like, well, are we following our core X-Men, Magneto, Mystique, and Professor Xavier? And then where did all these baby X-Men come from? And, are they just side characters or are they the lead characters? So it's just a lot of unanswered questions. So I think you want to, the famous saying, keep it simple, stupid. I think it applies to movie campaigns as well. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question. And then, of course, anything you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.